my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things, and today I am giving you my March TBR. I am kind of excited about this TBR. It is a bit longer than what my TBRs usually are, so I'm going to try and get through this as efficiently as possible. As usual, I do have it broken down into kind of categories. The biggest thing is that so many series, well, 2 series came out with new books, and then I'm in the middle of a bunch of series, and I would really like this year to try to complete several of the series that I was already in the middle of, especially like if I enjoyed the book and I'm interested in continuing the series, right? So I'm going to start with my series continuations, then we're going to talk about etc. books, and then I'm going to talk about the... My dog loves to be noisy right in the middle of filming every time, but then I'm going to talk about what I generally call my 24-hour reads, but there's been some conversations online about how if you're not actually staying up for a full 24 hours, should you be calling it that kind of challenge? So I don't really know what to call that right now. I'm still referring to it as my 24-hour reads because my intention is to try and read as many of those books within 24 hours throughout a week. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below if you have opinions on the matter. I am disabled, so personally I cannot stay up for 24 hours or it would be really bad for my body. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what my TBR for March is, starting with the series continuations. As all of these are just, they're either the 3rd or 4th or 5th book in a series, I'm not going to really go into what the books are about. I'm just going to give you that quick rundown because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who maybe hasn't read the series yet. First up, we have Ptolemy's Gate by Jonathan Stroud. This is a series I've been reading that was from my middle grade years. They're specifically like about Nathaniel and Bartholomew, who is a demon or a djinn, and they work together to solve various mysteries. And Nathaniel is kind of a terrible person. He's increasingly getting worse as time moves on. So this is the third book in that series. Next up, we have The Sandman Volume 5 by Neil Gaiman. I started these comics a while back and I've just now picked them back up, so I'm really excited to continue out that series, especially because I don't know if Netflix is ever going to continue the TV series. Then we have Half Off Ragnarok by right? By Shauna McGuire, which is a part of the Encrypted series, which I am currently obviously in the middle of. It's going to be the 3rd book in that series. Much like October Day, I think there's quite a lot of books in the series. However, I'm really enjoying it. I think it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea because their main character is not the brightest crayon in the box. But I kind of enjoy that. So, you know, pick your battles. Then we have To the Bloody End by Rachel Aaron, which is the 3rd book in the Changeling series within the DFZ series. I think this is the last book in the series. The 2nd book was incredible, and honestly, this might lead to me rereading all of the DFZ series books, which I highly recommend. Rachel Aaron's books were a recommendation in the CLEARURSHT Readathon last year. Then we have The Twisted Ones by Scott Cawthorn. That is a Five Nights at Freddy's book. It is the sequel in the Five Nights at Freddy's books. Moving on, we're not even going to talk about my obsession. Then I'm gonna read Love Boat Forever by Abigail Hang Wen, which, that's the Love Boat Taipei series. I really enjoy these books. They're very much a guilty pleasure. I don't know if I'm gonna reread the first 2 books. I don't feel like it's necessary, but I still might. But they're just so fun. Then we have Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree, which is, and I always want to call him Baldtree, which is not correct. It is the prequel to, what is that book series called? It's over there and turned around so I can't read it. But it is a prequel to a cozy fantasy series, and I like that I have included this because I've got a pretty like weird mix of books here, and so I think the cozy fantasy is going to be a nice break from that. I also will be reading Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. I read Godkiller just like on a whim not too long ago. Art had recommended it and gone feral for it, and I just didn't think about it. And then Ozzy proceeded to also recommend and go feral about it, and I was like, okay, if I get to it, I'll read it, whatever. I just haven't really been into fantasy too much recently, which is very odd for me. I've been reading them, but I'm just like, I don't care. This was incredible. Godkiller was incredible. So I'm very excited to be reading the sequel to Sunbringer. Like, Godkiller was so good that I immediately texted all of my friends who read and are not in the book community, and I was like, drop whatever the fuck you're reading and read Godkiller. Like, read it now. that's all of my series continuations. Now we're going to get into the books that I'm reading that are not series continuations, starting with The Black Period by Hafiza Augustus Keeter. I am absolutely butchering that and I'm aware of that. I'm sorry in advance. Well, I guess belatedly. This is a nonfiction book that came in that Rainbow Crate box of books. I think this is the last. No, I'll have one more after this to read, so they'll finally be done. I've been going through this box for months. An acclaimed poet reclaims her origin story as the queer daughter of a Muslim Nigerian immigrant and a Black American visual artist in this groundbreaking memoir combining lyrical prose, biting criticism, and haunting visuals. I think it'll be a really interesting story, and it marks off my desire to read at least one nonfiction book a month. I do have 2 on this list, but it'll knock it off. Then we have The Insatiable Volt Sisters by Rachel Eve Moulton. Rachel Eve Moulton is the author of Tinfoil Butterfly, which was a really good book series. One book. It was a really good book. Very weird, very fun. Scary, but good. So this is just another thriller from her. It's the summer of 1989 and Beatrice and Henrietta Volt are coming of age on remote Fowler Island in Lake Erie, their ancestral home and wild playground. The girls have no idea that their parents are separating or that the plan is to separate them. 10 years pass and Henry gets a desperate call from her sister. Their father has died suddenly and BB needs Henry to come back to the island for the funeral. When Henry arrives, the island seems even stranger than she remembers, but the truth is she doesn't remember much about the island and nothing at all about the night she left. She just feels a vague and perplexing sense of dread and a sharp fear of the quarry pond behind the house. This author does Erie really well, so I'm kind of excited to see how that goes. Next up we have Night's Edge by Liz Karen. Having a mom like Izzy meant that Mia had to grow up fast. No extracurriculars, no inviting friends over, and definitely no dating. The most important, tell no one of Izzy's hunger, the kind only blood can satisfy. But Mia is in her 20s now and longs for a life of her own, one where she doesn't have to worry about anyone discovering their terrible secret or breathing down her neck. When Mia meets rebellious musician Jade, she dares to hope she's found a way to leave her home and her mom behind. And it just might be Mia's only chance of getting out alive. All of these are like on my 100 books that I wanted to read this year, like that I've had on TBRs and stuff. So literally all of these are on that list. So I'm just like knocking them out. All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. Everyone from Wakarusa, Indiana remembers the case of January Jacobs, who was found dead in a ditch hours after her family awoke to find her gone. Margot Davies was 6 at the time, the same age as January, and they were next door neighbors. In the 20 years since, Margot has grown up, moved away, and become a big city journalist, but she's always been haunted by the fear that it could have been her. And the worst part is, January's killer has never been brought to justice. When Margot returns home to help care for her sick uncle, it feels like walking into a time capsule. Wakarusa is exactly how she remembered. Then news breaks about 5-year-old Natalia Clark from the next town over who's gone missing under very weirdly similar circumstances. The police, the family, and the townspeople, they all seem to be hiding something, and the deeper Margot digs into Natalie's disappearance, the more resistance she encounters and the colder January's case feels. I love a book where the cops are the bad guys, because cops are bad guys. They're the bad guys. If you weren't aware, they're the bad guys, and if you disagree, I don't care. Statistically, they are in fact the bad guys, so I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, on to the next nonfiction, The Defining Decade by Meg J, which I think is really funny to be reading in the last year of being in my 20s. This book is about how your 20s kind of define you. It is kind of an emerging year. They're like an emerging 10 years where psychologists and sociologists have kind of been doing this study for 10 years where they've determined that like our 20s matter and they will kind of have this like set in stone effect on the rest of our lives. And obviously reading this in the last year of my 20s might be stressful, but it'll be interesting in general to see because I'm curious about those kinds of things. Next up, and last on this list, we have Bloodleaf by Crystal Smith. Admittedly, this has been on my TBR because the cover's pretty. That's it, folks. I don't think I'd even read what this was about until I put together this TBR and I was like, oh, that's what this is about? Okay. I'm so good at making TBRs. I'm so good at saving books. It's great. Aurelia is a princess, what they call her a witch. Surrounded by spirits and burdened with forbidden magic, she lives in a constant fear of discovery by the witch-hunting tribunal and their bloodthirsty mobs. When a devastating assassination attempt reveals her magical abilities, Aurelia is forced to flee her country with nothing but her life. Aurelia was Art's D&D character name. Alone and adrift in an enemy kingdom, Aurelia plans her revenge against the tribunal, desperate to bring down the dark organization that has wrought terror upon her people for hundreds of years. But there's something deeply amiss in her new home too, and soon she finds herself swept into a deadly new mystery with a secretive prince, the ghost of an ancient queen, and the poison vine called Bloodleaf. There's gonna be romance in this, and I'm gonna be annoyed about it, and I already know that by now, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll get through it together, okay, folks? We'll get through it together. Now for the category, I'm still gonna call it 24-hour reads, fuck it. For the category of 24-hour reads, what I'm gonna try to read within 24 hours in a week, as a working disabled adult who cannot stay awake for 24 hours. Anyway, moving on. I'm gonna be rereading the Ellen Hopkins books. Now, if you were not mentally ill as a teenager, this content is not for you. I'm kidding. But it was in the 2010s, the early 2010s, the mid, like after 2005 until about 2015, the Ellen Hopkins books, everybody was going crazy for them. Everybody was going crazy for them. They were like Hunger Games. They were like, I remember when the Hunger Games came out, and I remember when these books were being released. It's like the There's Something About Alice books or something, or Go Find Alice, or Go Tell Alice. It was in that same category of like, you're definitely on Tumblr, you're definitely mentally ill, you definitely want to, but you're not going to, because how are you going to post on your aesthetic blog about it, right? The 2010s were a crazy time. They were a crazy time. And these books were a very important piece of them. First off, the covers, fucking impeccable. Incredible. These covers are insane. I still think these covers are incredible. Like, genuinely looking at them now, I'm like, these are great covers. I will be reading a bunch of these books, also, side note, and I will go through the titles of all of them, so like you may see a bunch of them come up on the screen, one right after the other. But these are written as poetry, kind of, so I might actually go to the library physically and go pick these up, because I think that would be fun. But these are written kind of like poetry, and I know there's one, I think it's identical maybe, that like the way that it worked was really crazy, and they're very cool. They're contemporary. They're often about mental illness. I'm pretty sure there's one about a conversion therapy camp, or like a troubled teen camp or something. There's ones that are about drugs. It's very clear, like loosely, I guess, about what each one is about, based on its single word title, which I do love that as well. But these books really made being a teenager for me, so I'm very excited to revisit them. I don't imagine they'll be as impactful as they were for me as a teenager. I don't think they'll have the same effect that the Hunger Games has every time I reread it, but you know, I could be wrong. So let's go through that list real quick. We have Crank, Glass, Fallout, Burned, Smoke, Impulse, Perfect, Tricks, and Identical. That's going to be a lot of books. Side note, these are all like 500 to 600 pages long a piece, or more. So I might have fucked myself, but because it's prose, I think that's different. So I think it'll be a little bit easier. We'll see. But that is it. That is the full TBR. That's everything I am reading this month. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. It is a bit faster paced than usual, mostly because I wanted to get through all of the books. It's a lot more books than I usually do. If you are reading any of these books, or want to read any of these books, or have read them and enjoyed them, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear about it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. It means the world to me. If you didn't enjoy this video, go away. Just kidding. If you didn't enjoy this video, let me know in the comments down below how I can make it better for you, as long as I can. No promises. I think that's it. I post videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, except for the first full week of the month, because scheduling is important. And I think that's all. I think that's all I have to say. Yeah, don't forget to take your meds, drink your water, and do something today to take care of yourselves. Okay, thanks, bye.